Number 15, the expressionless. In this scary urban legend, a woman appeared at a Cedar Sinai hospital in a blood-soaked white gown in June of 1972, but it wasn't just her white gown that freaked out the hospital staff. One of those things was that she appeared to be more mannequin than human, though she moved like a human. Her face was blank with no eyebrows and was coated in makeup. Even more horrifying, the mannequin woman was maiming a kitten. When she arrived at the hospital, she released the kitten from her mouth and collapsed. All through her hospital prep, she was still unresponsive and expressionless. And in the writer Ivy Sir's own words, most staff members felt too uncomfortable to look directly at her for more than a few seconds. But this emotionless response changed in a split second when hospital staff tried to do their job and sedate her. Despite being restrained already, 2 additional staff were forced to hold her down. Then she did something that chilled doctors to the core. She smiled. In place of teeth were long, sharp spikes. As security made its way to the hospital room, the mannequin woman launched at the doctor and tore his throat. Then, standing over him, she watched as he took his last breaths. The female doctor is said to have lived to tell the tale of what she deemed the expressionless, who is never seen or heard from again. Number 14, Ted the Caver. This legend follows a man who goes by Ted the Caver. While spelunking, he kept a blog to inform his family and friends of his caving escapades. But after Ted and his friend who goes by B traveled down the cave route less taken, he experienced something that resulted in a psychological breakdown of sorts, which included paranoia. He felt as though someone or something was watching him. After a time, he knew he had to return to the cave and face whatever had happened down there in order to combat his psychological torture. Once this decision was made via his blog, there was no further entry. Ted was never heard from again. We can assume he didn't make it out of that cave, and we are left to wonder what in the world was down there. Number 13, the Kanye West Cult Recruitment RPG. Kanye West does seem like he could be a cult leader, so it's no wonder that there's an internet urban legend going around that a Kanye West RPG video game is attempting to recruit for a cult. Someone posted anonymously to Pastebin that at certain times while playing, if you input the word ascend into the game, you're taken somewhere off the beaten path and given the message, "Congratulations, you have proven yourself to be an open-minded and curious thinker. We must apologize for deceiving you, but we can reveal that the game you were playing until this point was a front constructed to protect what you are currently assessing." The game then prompts you to provide your address to the game's creators so that during the next 2 weeks, they can interact with you and your possessions in several ways. Some say this internet urban legend is true, and that a new age cult called Ascensionism may be using the game as a ploy to recruit. Is Kanye their messiah? It wouldn't surprise me. Number 12, Zoot Suit Montana Man. Benedictus shared a story about a creepy urban legend that his high school football coach and teacher told the class. The coach had taught at a small Montana college. When he was a young newlywed, he left practice one night, and his route drove him and his old pickup truck past fields of grain. One night he pulled over to pick up a hitchhiker that waved him down on the shoulder of the back road, as you would in the olden days in small-town Montana. The guy was wearing what was described as an outdated suit, similar to a zoot suit, with a big hat on. According to the writer, this guy looked like he was out of the 40s, and my teacher thought it was super weird that he was so overdressed, with it being super hot out. The hitchhiker got in and was silent. When the teacher asked where he wanted to go, the man pointed straight ahead. The silence got stranger when the teacher tried to make conversation, but the zoot suit man ignored him and pulled his hat lower, pretending to sleep. Then suddenly the man tipped his hat and told him to stop the car. The teacher did as he was bid, and the man stood outside the car for a moment before sprinting off into the field and vanishing amongst the tall grain. The teacher waited for a minute, considering that the guy might return, but after waiting, he got into the truck and pressed his foot on the gas. The old pickup didn't accelerate fast enough to avoid what he saw in the rearview mirror. In his own words, although there were no cars, what there was the hitchhiker, on all fours like a human running or crawling after the truck at an inhuman speed. As he floored it, his truck began to fishtail, all the while with the man chasing his car. When he finally picked up enough speed to lose the guy, he stopped at the first gas station he came across and called his wife. He told her to lock up the house. His wife thought he was joking and that he'd had a conversation with a colleague of hers, as they had told her of similar incidents. The hitchhiker had apparently gotten many rides in that town. The question now is, was the man really human? Number 11. The Choking Doberman. This urban legend owned the internet for a while. It's said that an Australian lady came home to find her Doberman wasn't breathing. She rushed him to the vet and left the dog there to head back home. But before she got there, the vet called and told her not to return home. Why? Well, because the dog had choked on a human finger, and the vet thought it was likely to be that of a burglar who could still be at large. Sure enough, after the woman called the police to come search her home, they found the fingerless burglar in a closet. He'd fainted from the loss of blood. This is certainly a case of a dog protecting its owner. Number 10. Elevator Incident. This urban legend will have you taking the stairs for the rest of your life. According to the author, he was in Taiwan when he decided to use a net cafe for some emails near a busy night market late at night. The building was a bit run down, although the elevator was newer, with only the numbers 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6. This isn't unusual, because in Taiwan and China, the number 4 is considered bad luck, as it sounds like death in Mandarin. The net cafe was on the 6th floor, so he pressed the elevator button. No sooner had it stopped than the man got ready to step out of the elevator, but before he did, he looked around. Darkness spread before him, and the whole floor was filled with pieces of furniture covered in white cloth. This wasn't the net cafe. In the distance, he saw a figure in a gown creeping towards the elevator. Of course, this freaked the guy out, and he began pounding on the closed door button, to which the elevator answered with flickering lights. Suddenly, he was entirely in darkness. When the lights returned, the elevator door shut and began again to head to the net cafe. After calming himself down at a computer, he explained to the cashier what he'd seen. The girl paled and told him that someone had taken their own life on the 4th floor of the building, when it was once a hair salon. When the business closed down and a stationery store finally rented the space, odd things happened during renovations, like a mirror smashing, tools moving randomly, and a worker getting his hand jammed in the elevator. The place was shut down, and the building's owner had someone come in to program the elevator to never stop at the 4th floor, but for some reason, sometimes it stops randomly there, and many claim to have seen this figure in the dark. Which exact building this is in Taiwan remains a mystery. Number 9. The noise coming from inside children. This supposed article by Ed Kahn appeared in a local newspaper in the 70s, only to be met with terrible reviews. According to some, the sickening tale was never reprinted. A blog entitled "Who is Ed Kahn?" claims that after this singular publication, the writer vanished completely, although the story itself seems to have vanished with its maker. The noise coming from inside children is said to be the most terrifying story ever written, with only a single remaining review of the work, saying no one would ever claim to be a fan of it. Although many are dying to know what this story was about, the disappeared author isn't telling. Number 8. The phone number. Have you ever wanted revenge? There is a phone number that will give it to you. According to the writer, he just moved into a new cabin and was waiting for a plumber to call back. When the phone rang, he thought it was the plumber on the other end, but when he answered, a female voice told him to please hold. Elevator music suddenly turned into a piano chord that struck a nerve. Then a woman named Samantha spoke, claiming she was from Booth World Industries. She asked for a name. After the caller gave it, the operator said she already knew who he was and he should give her a name to access. When the man gave a fictitious name, Harold Withers, the operator said that fictitious names, or names of people the caller didn't know, were invalid. The man asked what the name would be used for, and she responded remodeling. He finally gave her his ex-girlfriend's name. The operator responded that remodeling was scheduled for August 21st, 2015. And she asked if that would work for him. Confused and still thinking this was the plumber, he asked if there was any availability for that same day, and she responded that there was an opening at 3 o'clock and a courtesy call was available. As the call ended, she welcomed him to the club. At 3 o'clock that day, Samantha called back, and he heard the tearful voice of his ex-girlfriend Jessica on the other line, asking, "Why are you doing this?" When he tried talking to Jessica, he was interrupted by Samantha, who said this was simply a courtesy call and that the appointment was over. He listened to Jessica wheeze and choke and beg until there was nothing, and a male voice said the scheduled work had been completed. Samantha returned to ask if the call was to his satisfaction. Jessica had cheated on him, so he admitted that yes, it was. When she asked if he wanted to make another appointment, he gave her the name of the contractor who messed up his new cabin. As they went back and forth about a time for this appointment, Samantha said he was due for a remodeling Wednesday night. When he asked if they could reschedule that, she said that they could if he could recruit new members, 1,000 of them. So the writer wrote this piece to reach out to his audience. In his own words, "I'm scheduled for a remodeling on Wednesday, and somewhere, someone will be getting a courtesy call to listen to my last few breaths if I don't get 1,000 members to join Booth World Industries. Just call 630-296-7536. Not sure about you, but I have no desire to join." Number 7. The girl in the photograph. Urban legends often end sadly for those involved. This one is no exception. During school one day, Tom saw something outside his classroom window. When school was out, he raced over to that something and found it was a photograph of a young beautiful girl flashing the peace sign. He asked everyone he came into contact with if they knew the girl, but no one did. That night he was awakened by a tapping on his window, followed by giggling. He found a shadow near the window, so he followed it. But when he approached, it disappeared. The next night, the same thing happened. This time he carried the picture while following the shadow. As he crossed the street, however, he met his end. A car hit him in the dead of night. The boy was holding the picture of the beautiful girl in his hand as he lay lifeless. But when authorities reviewed the photo, she was holding up 3 fingers. Now, who will be the 4th? Number 6. Lavender Town Syndrome. When Pokemon Red and Green was released in Japan on February 27, 1996, children between the ages of 7 and 12 who had played the game started becoming ill at epic rates, and there was also a spike in people taking their own lives. Something like 200 of them allegedly. According to the legend, this only happened once the child had reached the level of Lavender Town in the game. Some theories are that the high-frequency theme music for Lavender Town is what triggered the effects, as children's ears are sensitive enough to hear these frequencies. Not only did Lavender Town result in illness, but some say it also triggered irrational behavior. After the mass hysteria, the frequency of Lavender Town's theme song was lowered, which apparently ceased the mass wave of illness and people taking their own lives. Number 5. Aper. Drug in Russian, it means friend, but in this internet urban legend, it's a cryptid's nickname that's said to be cursed. Aper first appeared online when an image of the creature was uploaded to Imgur on August 25th, 2015, originating from a photo of a death claw. Nearly 3 years later, on April 2nd, 2018, the image was tweeted by Korolev Cross along with the word Aper in the bottom left corner. The image then became popular across the internet, with posts galore about Aper. This urban legend goes to show how quickly a simple image can spread across the web. Number 4. Polybus Mind Control. This is one of the older urban legends on the list. According to some, the 80s arcade game Polybus was used by the CIA to run experiments on mind control. These experiments allegedly led to memory loss, headaches, and seizures. Others think that the game was simply a beta version of the Atari game Tempest that was pulled after making people sick, but who knows? Probably just the CIA. Number 3. Hell.com. When the internet was newly birthed, an anonymous website called Hell.com appeared. It survived for 5 years, enough time to plant the seeds of urban legend into our minds. It is a private parallel web. There's no public access. The page is black home screen red with a downward pointing arrow. According to some, the site consisted of a maze that included disturbing messages, blank pages, freaky music, JavaScript bugs that prevented users from leaving the site, and form papers, which included the so-called Soul Redemption Program. While some say it was a modern art project, others still believe that Satan was behind the domain. Number 2. 8 feet tall. According to a Japanese urban legend, Hachi Shaku-sama, or an 8 feet tall woman wearing a long white dress, kidnaps children while making the sound po, po, po. One individual claims to have met face to face with this urban legend and lived to tell the tale. The author would visit his grandparents in Japan every summer until the age of 8 years old. On the final visit, he was left with his grandparents on his own and was laying in the grass outside looking up at the clouds when he heard a noise. The noise, po, po, po. He wasn't sure where the sound was, but it seemed like a man was making the noise. Then he noticed a straw hat behind the tall hedges of the backyard. It seemed to be the source, and when it started to move, he saw a woman's face peer through the top of the 8 foot tall hedges. The woman then disappeared, and so did the noise. The boy ran into the house and told his grandparents what he'd seen and about the noise he'd heard. It was only when he mentioned the sound that the pair froze. His grandpa became animated and grabbed his arm, asking how tall the woman appeared. When he told them the woman was the same height as the garden hedge, the grandpa raced to the phone to call someone and returned only to say he had to go out for a bit and that the grandma should not take her eyes off the boy. When the boy asked what was happening, his grandpa responded, "You've been liked by Hachi Shaku-sama." After his grandpa left, his grandma explained that this dangerous 8 foot tall thing was haunting the area. Sometimes it appeared to children as a young girl in a white funeral shroud, other times as a haggard old lady wearing a kimono, but it always made the same noise. The creature had been captured by monks using religious statues placed at all 4 directions of some ruins, but it had somehow escaped. It hadn't been seen for 15 years, but every time that 8 foot tall monster was seen, the child died in a matter of days. After a woman named Kei-san, whom the grandpa had gone to retrieve, handed the boy a crumpled piece of paper. The boy was locked up in a room with the windows covered and told not to come out until 7 o'clock in the morning. Kei-san said his grandparents wouldn't talk to him until then. He was told not to let go of the scrap of paper, and he was told to pray to Buddha if something scary happened, and to lock the door once they'd left. He did all of this. After a while in the room, he fell asleep, only to be awakened by a tap on the window. When the tapping eventually stopped, he heard his grandpa's voice asking if he wanted him to keep him company. As he rushed to the door to open it for him, he realized something wasn't quite right, and when the salt and bowls around him turned black, he backed away from the door and began praying. While holding the paper in his hands, suddenly the po, po, po began. This went on all night. The next morning, when the boy opened the door, he was hurried into a caravan that included his parents, grandparents, other men, and K-san. As they sped away, the boy peeked outside and saw Hachi Shaku-sama floating beside them. No one else could see her, but they could hear her tapping while K-san prayed. After a while, the monster disappeared, and in the boy's hand, the parchment paper had turned black. This person never returned to Japan, even when his grandfather was sick and passed away 10 years later. A while later, his grandmother called and said that she was dying of cancer and would like to see her grandson one last time before she passed. When he asked his grandmother, "But what about Hachi Shaku-sama?" there was a pause, and then the sound on the other end of the line, po, po, po. Don't know about you, but my heart just dropped. Before we get to number 1, my name is Chills and I hope you're enjoying my narration. If you're curious about what I look like in real life, then go to my Instagram at DylanIsChillinYT and tap that follow button to find out. I'm currently doing a super poll on my Instagram. If you believe ghosts are real, then go to my most recent photo and tap the like button. If you don't, DM me saying why. When you're done, come right back to this video to find out the number 1 entry. Also, follow me on Twitter at YT_chills because that's where I post video updates. It's a proven fact that generosity makes you a happier person. So if you're generous enough to hit that subscribe button and the bell beside it, then thank you. This way, you'll be notified of the new videos we upload every Tuesday and Saturday. Number 1. The Staircases. A post by Search and Rescue Woods on Reddit has some people scratching their heads, including the search and rescue officer who wrote it. He begins his post as follows: "I've been an SAR officer for a few years now, and along the way, I've seen some things that I think you guys will be interested in." As many were interested in his stories, some of which included searching for missing persons, an alleged kidnapper called the Bear Man, a faceless man, and a girl who climbed a tree but never came back down again. But the strangest story that's become an internet urban legend is that of the staircases. According to the writer, it's an unspoken thing for every search and rescue unit to come across abandoned staircases to nowhere in the middle of the woods. The writer says that if you ask a search and rescue officer about it, they'll probably refuse to answer because superiors have ordered officers not to talk about it. In fact, it's become so normalized that some don't even find it strange anymore to come across a staircase 30, 40, or 50 odd miles into the wilderness. The first time he was confronted with a staircase, he was told he didn't have to worry about it because this was a regular thing. But when he wanted to investigate these staircases further, he was told not to go near them. The officer wrote, "It's almost like if you took the stairs in your house, cut them out and put them in the forest. Does anyone have any idea as to why these staircases are there and where they may lead?" The officer has written new posts about the staircases, and they might finally have the answer. Thanks for checking out this video. Be sure to subscribe because we upload new countdowns every Tuesday and Saturday. Or if you're still not convinced, here are some of our other videos that I think you'd like. Enjoy!